Hello, Dr. Dittner. How are you?
Hi, Dr. Seidel. Good to see you.
So good to see you. I'm extremely grateful that you're here to talk with our families in our three offices on our very cutting edge podcast on helping parents and teens and children, all of it, through supporting them through this pandemic and this new
Sure.
normal. Dr. Dittner is a psychologist and a friend. She's exceptional, and at Peak City Psychology, and I'm going to put a link at the end to her office so you guys will be able to put a name with a face. But today's topic, I think more than anything, is to talk a little bit with our families, Carrie, about loss and pain, to help our kids through a lot of new losses, and a lot of parents who are also, I don't know, struggling with how to move through their own losses at the same time. And so from graduations to big events this summer that no one's sure about, kids coming home from college that are unexpected or missing abroad programs, young children losing periods of time with their friends, all of it. So I just want to know, kind of from your opinion, what you're seeing among your clients, and also just some thoughts you have about that topic, and maybe offer some guidance for our families if you could.
Sure. I mean, I think I am observing a lot of different things, quite honestly, in my office. But if there is one sort of umbrella thing, is that there is a collective grief and there is a collective trauma, and it can look different for every single family. But I think it's all sort of attacking our nervous systems like all at once, right? So I get this sense that everyone's kind of feeling unsettled in different ways. And you mentioned a couple different things, like some little kids might be missing their play dates, at school. That's kind of what they know. They're missing their structure. They are less likely to kind of be thinking about sort of these what if scenarios, right?
Right.
And for teens, I think they are experiencing, I worry about them the most in terms of just two things, really. The amount of loss that they're experiencing are high school seniors. I mean, I'm devastated for like those high school seniors, those college seniors, and sort of what they're missing out on. But if you think about it, developmentally, what their job is right now is to find themselves and find others, right? Like they're supposed to be connecting. And thank goodness that we have these things like Zoom. I was just like trying to explain to my own teenager, I'm like, we had this thing connected to the wall and we were like dialing, like we didn't have these options for connection. And so I think that's where their struggle is. So it's definitely different across sort of the childhood span, right? About sort of what a 6-year-old is experiencing and what that 18-year-old is experiencing, for sure. And then the parents having to kind of respond to those things in different ways.
Talk about that a little bit regarding, so one of the things that we talked about briefly the other day that I think is on a lot of parents' minds, actually had a mom post this on our Facebook page the other day, was a couple things. Number one, if the only way our kids now can not feel isolated, especially our teens, is to connect via media, and many of us as parents had boundaries around that, either we wouldn't let them do it at a certain age, or there was a time limit to that age. Figuring out for each family on what the right is seems to be a topic I'm seeing all over the forums in general. Can you talk just about your opinions on that, if you have any, and what you think is a reasonable way for us to approach that as parents?
For sure. I mean, in general, I think every single session I have had for parents in the past month has been, let's lower the bar. Let's loosen those expectations, because there is no guidebook for this. We were completely caught off guard. We were completely unprepared. We had no experience whatsoever with sort of any of these things that we're having to deal with right now. And so I think kind of increasing sort of those video type things is really necessary right now. It is the way that they're connecting with their friends. That's really probably the only way that they're connecting with friends, if they're doing this social distancing thing sort of the way that we are encouraged to be doing it right now. And because it's such a sensitive and essential part of their development, they need that. They need that. Now, do I want them going into like complete like zombie mode, like because they've been like attached to a screen the whole day? No. So I often tell parents, I'm like, look, I was like, let's find ways to connect with them. Let's also get them outside, engage your senses, feel the sun, feel the air, move your body, eat well, sleep well. So I think some of those broader constructs still very much apply, but the boundaries on technology need to be loose a little bit. We need to kind of give them that space.
I think so too. And I think probably the hardest time I have in my own home is figuring out at what point when my child is in their room, are they just nourishing themselves and having self-care versus wanting them to come out into our family unit and take advantage of this
Yes.
experience collectively we're having to connect. And one of the moms that I was alluding to wanted to know kind of how we decide when enough time in your room is enough, because really there's nothing else to do.
There's nothing else to do.
Nothing else to do. 'Cause, I mean, we want people to go out and about without with other families, obviously, but to get some fresh air. And the weather has been a gift in this whole.
Thank God for the weather. Yes.
But a lot of parents are not sure how long should I let them stay in their room by themselves and do that or not, because they can't
Yeah.
watch it, you know.
No. And it's so hard to put like a quantitative amount on that. And that's why I like to think in categories. I want to put check marks in each of those categories. Did we play a card game together?
Yeah.
Did they come out of their room to eat? Are they going to bed at a reasonable time? Did they move their body? So I like to think of it in these categories, and let's put checks in every one of those boxes if we can during the day, because there is no way that I can say, you know, I know usually my rule of thumb when we were sort of back in the old days is these, you know, sort of 2 hours, like let's kind of keep it to that, right? But they had other things filling up their day. They were in school for 6+ hours, you know, or sports or activities. And now we just don't have that. So that 2 hours is not reasonable anymore. So definitely, do I want it to be 10? No. But let's think about it categorically. Let's think about, are you getting your other needs met? Are you doing other things? Are you actually having touch and air and food and those kinds of things? And I think if we're able to kind of balance those categories, then we're doing a pretty good job, honestly.
I couldn't agree more. And I think some of our kids are really going to develop a skill set of organizing their day in a different way. Before, there was so much structure that really they'd be fighting for that time to be on their electronic because it was the only space of their day that they really could control. And now the whole thing is just, you know, so I don't know that it's necessary for all of our parents, specifically some of our parents who are still considered essential, who are out and about and doing stuff. That we do like a whole beautiful, colorful graph, but asking the kids, depending on their age, to help organize their day, I think is helpful for that too, don't you?
Absolutely. Especially sort of the psychological and developmental research on kids in elementary school, kids in preschool, babies even. You know this better than I do, but they need that fence. They need that fence to kind of feel secure, right? And so I think we need to kind of have that implemented in some way. And again, like I first saw like, you know, all of these beautiful like Pinteresty kind of schedules that were out there. And I myself, as like a working parent, and I still have an elementary schooler, right? I could feel like that panic, like, oh my gosh, like I'm sort of not, you know, producing enough like with this schedule. But I think when we relax sort of those expectations and be like, okay, let's look at these 4 main things, you know, is he kind of getting up? I look at my own 5th grader right now. Is he kind of getting up at a reasonable hour? Is he, you know, still kind of keeping the meal times? Is he still kind of going on a bike ride? Those kinds of things I think are important. So I think schedules for our younger ones are helpful, but again, it doesn't have to be like color coded and to the minute. I mean, we can't replicate the fact that in their usual day, math is at 10:18. We can't do that. We absolutely can't.
And it doesn't have to be a goal. That's not always the best way that kids function anyway, you know?
Definitely not.
One of the things that I want to make sure we get back to, even though I don't want to harp on it, we have talked already on our podcast a little bit about resilience in kids. And I want to acknowledge the part of pain that a lot of parents feel uncomfortable around. So sometimes when my daughter would be wrestling with feeling bummed out, my first temptation was to think of something we could do that would cheer her up. And then I had
Yes.
to bring myself back to remember that her sitting in that is okay. And so weird this is a weird way to think of it, but I almost feel like the opportunity for discomfort and pain is actually a gift in some ways for our kids. And I'm wondering how you might advise parents to move through just being okay that their kids are bummed out and not having to make sense of it.
Yeah, for sure. And this is something I actually tried to preach even before sort of we were hit with this global pandemic, is
Right.
that I really like to kind of teach my families that our emotions are just emotions. This is something that we don't have to categorize or judge. There's not a bad column and a good column,
Right.
so our feelings are meant to be felt. Like, I think that's the point of it. And I think the best thing we can do as parents is to join them in that, and to just be okay with that together, and sort of help them regulate and navigate through the emotion, rather than trying all these ways to like fix or avoid or hurry up, let's get better. I just feel like sometimes there is good value in knowing that I survived something hard.
Yeah.
I did something hard. And this horrible feeling that I had didn't last forever. It didn't take over my life. There was an ending and I came out of it. And I think there's value in that. And there's definitely, confidence and optimism that can be really just cultivated from being able to go through tough times. One of my favorite authors, and I know that she's one of your favorites too, is Glennon Doyle, right? And so she has this beautiful way, and I've been using it with my parents. She talks about how life gives us turbulence. She kind of uses this plane analogy, right? And I love it because we have turbulence right now. We have it in spades. We have turbulence. And she said, parents' job is to kind of have the oxygen mask and have the peanuts. Like, let's just kind of, I love that, because it's just like, let's just kind of be a calm force with them and join them and get through it together, for sure.
Along that metaphor too, I think it's worth commenting that when you're on a plane, it's really important to put your oxygen mask on first. So
Yes.
in
Yes.
addition to our parents helping our kids too, not only have I been encouraging parents to put their own mask on and do some self-care, which we've talked about. I'm not talking about a pedicure. I mean, just really
Yeah.
emotional self-care, but
Yes.
also just recognizing that it's also okay for your kids to see you feeling overwhelmed and in pain. A lot of our parents in the normal world protect their kids from seeing what that's like. And
Right.
I don't know what your thoughts are about that, but I think that cheats kids out of knowing that they can have that day where they can get through something hard.
I definitely think so. They are watching us. They are watching how we sort of handle life. And of course, we're going to have our moments where we can't handle life very well. I mean, because we're human. I mean, that's going to happen. And I think there is some value in that. I mean, obviously, do I want a parent? I mean, I've got to kind of couch this in certain terms, because yes, if you are kind of in your room all day because you're feeling so completely overwhelmed, that's going to be hard, right? But if you are talking to your child and labeling it, this is hard for mom. This is hard, but I know that we're going to get through. I know tomorrow's another day. I think that is appropriate. I think it's appropriate. Labeling is one of the first steps in being able to regulate. And so if we are labeling it with our children, they know how to name it. It doesn't feel so out of control and scary.
Yeah.
And so we label it and we help them cope. And that's the best that we can do, for sure. We don't have to consider it bad. We don't have to avoid it. We just have to be kind of real and authentic, but also moving forward, kind of putting one step in front of the other, for sure.
I agree. I often will tell some of my families to print a list of different feeling words to improve vocabulary around what your feelings are, because there's so many more than just happy or sad or annoyed. And that way, that language is a common language in your home when you're trying to, you're seeing your kid behave poorly, and their behavior really is reflecting a feeling that they lack the language to express. And
Yes.
if you're not expressing that all the time, right, it's hard for them to know what that is.
Exactly.
That's so, yeah. How do my parents know when the amount of emotion their kids are having is too much and they need to call someone like you? Like when should they, some parents are uncomfortable because they don't like to have those feelings, and differentiate
Right.
the whole nother
Right.
conversation probably, but
Yeah.
when should parents be worried that the amount of discomfort their kids are having is too much?
Yeah, I think I look at severity and frequency, quite honestly, because I don't look at certain behaviors because I think there's a spectrum of behaviors and emotions, right? And so I like to look at severity and frequency. And so if they are kind of doing this day after day, it is impairing their ability to kind of eat and sleep and connect and be still or do kind of like their daily life. That's the time where it's time to pick up the phone. Where it's kind of creating stress in their day on a day-to-day basis, for sure. That you seem, because everyone kind of has an off day, everyone kind of has an off moment, and we allow for those. There's plenty of times where we struggle, right? But if that struggle is becoming more the norm, then we need to kind of get some help there.
Okay. I think that a lot of questions my families are getting along those lines are, well, how, from their children especially, but also among ourselves, is how long
Yeah.
are we going to have to do this? Like, if I could just, like, if it was like June 1st, then I could wrap my mind around it, right? And so,
Yeah.
and so I think a lot of our kids are having this almost, we talked about it like a pre-traumatic stress about really expecting. My daughter even said, I can do this until July, but if we don't go back to college in the fall, I'm going to not be well, right? And I
Right.
want to, I know she'll be fine either way, but I don't want to minimize that. And so what's the answer? I mean, I may not, that's a hard question, but like, what's the answer to that question? How long are we going to have to be inside? How long are we going to have to do that? It's just so hard. Because the parents are asking it too.
I mean, honestly, I know our brains go there because we are geared to be like structured and to kind of plan ahead and do all these things. That's kind of like what our society was. And so we want to know, and we want to know when we can kind of get back to normal. But I honestly think the answer there is I don't know. And we have to sit with I don't know. And we have to sit in this space, and it is uncomfortable. But look, I mean, if someone would have told me in January, you're going to spend about 2 months inside and you're going to be doing all your visits via telehealth, I'd be like, there's no way I can do that.
Yeah.
And guess what, people? We've just done it for a month.
Yeah.
I mean, you did.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I talk about, you've actually gone through it already. Like, look what you have done. Take a look at it. If someone were to tell you this, you would have thought, no, this is some crazy, like dystopian, weird Twilight Zone movie that I'm in, but you're here and you're making it. And you're making it work. And I don't know how long you're going to have to make it work, but I believe in you. I'm going to be right here with you, and we're going to figure it out because we've figured it out for the past 4 weeks.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And so it's an I don't know, but also you've been successful so far.
That's right. And then anchor sometimes the conversation, and gratitude can end it in a place that doesn't feel so hopeless, because I feel the non-ending answer for many concrete people is just, it's tough stuff. Now our introverts, man, they are in heaven right now.
Every single time I see like a telehealth appointment, I've got all these kids wrapped in their blanket and they're like on their couch and they're just happy as a clam. They're like loving it. They're like little homebodies.
For me, that has been, I would love to hear as we kind of close what you feel like has been the biggest blessing. I have so many things I took for granted that I miss, but I really, and I've said this on the podcast already before, but I've never seen the kids that I care for so relaxed. They're bored, but their energy is just so different in the teenagers I've been seeing for WellCare. Has that been your sense as well? Because I thought they would be much more anxious, and I just am not getting that overall. Of course, you see a different population than I do, but still.
Right. Again, I think it's different because I think those kids under 7 are pretty insulated because they're cognitively not kind of wired to kind of be thinking about these big picture things. So I think that they're kind of dealing with what's in front of them. And I am home, and what's outside is usually the thing that's scary, right? Because home is usually such a great place to be, and I get to be here all the time. So I think they're okay. The teenagers, I think, definitely feel the benefit from the learning academic pressure side of it. They breathe a little bit more. There is not ACT, SAT, AP, we're not kind of doing this. Now, some kids are struggling, obviously, with this kind of virtual learning and lack of structure, but in general, that reduction of pressure has been, I think, a blessing, for most of the kids that I'm talking to, for sure. What they pinpoint the most is just the losses of those social pieces. And that's because that's their biggest job right now is to connect. Yeah.
Well, I expect my parents to continue to have a fair amount of wonder and conversation about this issue for sure.
Sure.
I will pass along that to you if you'd be willing at some other point to come in and talk about some global topics. I understand you're going to be doing a little bit of podcasting as well. Is that right?
I hope so. I mean, our goal is just to try to reach as many as we can. I mean, that's sort of the direction that we are taking, like as a practice right now, is just to figure out, we know we want to kind of reach out, through the lens and just get to as many people as we can.
Well, I appreciate everything you're doing. It is not an easy job to be a psychologist right now. So, and everybody
Oh,
needs.
Same to you, girl.
I appreciate you taking time out of your day to be here with all of our families. And I wish
Thank you so much.
Health. Stay in your home.
And we will.
All right. Thanks, Carrie.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.